Welcome to Sundays with Howie on the True Talk Radio Network. Connect with Howie. 514-738-4100, extension 200. By email, howie@truetalkradio.com. Or by Twitter, Howie Silbiger.
And welcome to hour number 2 of Sundays with Howie, here on 1650 AM CJRS Radio, Shalom, Montreal. Heard around the world on the True Talk Radio Network, now live streaming video on www.truetalkradio.com. Just click on live video stream and you'll see us as we do the show. It's now time for our weekly round table, where we go around the table and we talk about some moral issue. We, of course, invite you to call in for the round table, so if you have something to say on the issue, please feel free to call in. We want you to sound off. Number to call, 514-738-4100, extension 200. That's 514-738-4100, extension 200. All right, we'll start with the guy on my left here. It's Mark David.
Hello, everybody.
Sitting right in front of me is Itai, and on the phone we have Frank Kermit. He is a author and a relationship specialist. Hi, welcome to the program, Frank. Frank? Why am I not hearing Frank? I know why I'm not hearing Frank. That's why. Hey, Frank.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. You see, if I push the right button, sometimes it works.
Amazing how that works in radio.
It is. It is truly fascinating.
It's great to be here, Howie.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on to the show tonight.
For you, Howie, anytime.
All right, Frank and I are old friends, and Frank is an author. He's written like 155,000 books, and he's been on various radio stations and right across on. I saw you on television last week.
Yeah, Newlywed Nearly Dead.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see you on TV.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Anyway, tonight the roundtable topic tonight is there ever a time, if you know somebody is guilty of a crime, or has committed some moral misdeed, such as, I don't know, adultery, so should you as a person turn that person in, or inform his wife, his spouse, or turn the person in? Now let me tell you where this all comes from, because there's a reason I'm doing this topic. In Judaism, we have this concept, and it was a concept written by the rabbis centuries ago. And the concept is called the Masira concept. And basically what Masira says is that you can't turn in a Jew to secular authorities. And the reason you can't do it is because Jews were persecuted throughout the ages. And by turning a Jew into a secular authority, you may, cause the Jew a great harm, or perhaps death, the death penalty, by turning them in. And B, you might hurt the Jewish community in general. By turning a Jew in, you might hurt the Jewish community in general because the secular community might think that the Jewish community is responsible for the crime that this one individual committed. And so that was basically, in a basic nutshell, there's a lot more to it than that, but in a basic nutshell, that is what the concept of Masira stands for, right? So we see in a lot of religious Jewish communities, we see a lot of communities harboring criminals, whether they be embezzlers or child molesters or thieves. We see them hiding them, and we see them not turning them into secular authorities. So my question to you guys, and this is the question I have tonight: are we morally obligated to turn people that we know have committed either moral misdeeds or legal misdeeds into authorities, and to inform spouses and to inform people, so that everyone knows that these people committed these kind of acts? Let's start with Itai.
Kind of a tricky question, because there's a difference between tattletaling and telling on someone. Tattletaling is when you just say for the heck of it to get the person in trouble. Telling is when you get them out of trouble. So if they, let's say, under 18 drinks alcohol, let's say, and if they, let's say, drink alcohol, do you report that? Not really. If it's something minor like that, but if he has the intent of doing something dangerous or going out to drive, absolutely go right away, stop him. But if it's controlled, or if it's somewhere, just leave it alone. But we are morally obligated when it hurts other people themselves, or when it, if someone's going to go off and commit suicide, we absolutely have all the rights in the world to try and stop them. If someone's going to kill someone, absolutely. If someone did something wrong, that is absolutely wrong. If someone, let's say, has murder, not that I know anyone that has murdered anyone, but if someone, let's say, has done murder, would that be considered something you would have to tell? If someone has murdered, absolutely, because it's a danger to everyone else around them. It would depend, again, on the situation, on whether it's something that is minor that doesn't have effects on other people and themselves. But it would also matter on if it affected you, and even if it didn't affect you, if it affects someone else. If someone is drunk and they're going to go in their car, absolutely affects you and everyone else around you.
Right.
So there are some times when you absolutely do have to tell if someone has committed murder, absolutely. But on some minor offenses, I say leave it alone. It's really up to you. But if it's a minor offense that doesn't affect anybody, it's their problem.
All right, Frank, what do you think?
Well, I think you have to look at the situation per se and look at the severity of it. And you're comparing committing adultery to committing a heinous crime like murder, and you can't just lump them in together like that. So let's start off with adultery, since my background is in relationships. The first issue when you know that someone is committing adultery is that you may not have all the facts. What could be perceived as adultery to you could be nothing more than that couple has an understanding. They're following a different relationship structure other than monogamy. And you might not be privy to that information. So at that point, it may not be any of your business. Now, in a case where you know that the couple is monogamous, and even then, you couldn't really be 100% sure, because what people present themselves as in public may be very different than the way they conduct themselves in private. Rather than go and tell on the wife or the husband and say, hey, your partner's cheating on you, go to the partner that is cheating and say, look, I saw you there with so-and-so. If you are cheating on your spouse, it's better they hear it from you than anyone else. Because if I saw you, chances are someone else saw you. And the next time that you get invited out to a function hosted by that couple, if you truly do not support the idea of adultery, you don't support even going to those events. Your absence will speak volumes without you having to get further involved in their relationship.
But you don't tell the other spouse.
Well, because you don't know if there's already an understanding between the spouses they haven't shared with you.
But if you ask the person who's having an affair, wouldn't that be a question?
Sorry, I can't hear that. Can you repeat that?
If you go, you said to go to the spouse who is having an affair, who's doing it.
You go to the spouse and say, look, I don't want to know what's going on between you and your partner. It's not my business. But I did see you with that other person, and it was obvious you were having an intimate moment.
And let's say if he says that if there's an understanding between the spouses.
The fact is, most people won't. Even those people in alternative lifestyles won't readily admit it. Because there's a huge stigma against people who, let's say, live the swinger lifestyle, who are polyamorous, polygamist. They're more likely to say, yeah, I am cheating on my spouse, because for some reason that is socially more acceptable than being a person who openly practices non-monogamy. So you have to remember, most people in non-monogamous relationship structures do not readily admit it because it's nobody's business, and there is a huge stigma attached to it. That's why you simply say, I don't know what's going on there. I saw you with so-and-so, or I saw you having an intimate moment with someone else. If you are cheating, it's better your spouse hears it from you than someone like me.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Frank. The best thing in this situation would really be to speak to the spouse who is causing the problems or appears to be engaging in what seems like an intimate encounter. If that's the case, you take them aside and say, what are you doing? Do you really want to keep your relationship with this person? I know you love them a lot. What are you doing? You should stop. And some people, they'd be like, you're talking crazy, man. I'm not doing anything wrong. Nobody has to know. Like, well, it's like you said, Frank, if I've seen, then chances are there are others who have seen the same thing.
But I just have to ask, Frank, if you do know that if you talk to him and he said openly yes, or if he even said no, why should you not attend a gathering made by them? Because, you're still friends. Let's say you're friends with the other spouse. Would you not be friends with them just because you know that?
If I happen to be in a situation where there's a married couple involved, and I know that there's a deception going on against one of the partners in the married couple, I will remove myself from that situation. My absence will speak volumes. The reason I'm going to remove myself is because as long as I continue to participate with this couple, I am supporting a deception.
How are you supporting a deception?
Because I'm going along with not saying anything.
But you're not saying anything, but you're not going there, so you're trying to just give a sense that something's going on.
Exactly. My feeling is I will not support a deception, so I will remove myself from that situation.
And let them figure out from themselves?
And let them figure out from themselves, because at some point, when the truth comes out, and I say when, not if, because in today's day and age, you got technology, you have emails, you have text messages, you have phone records. In divorce proceedings now, even, the server companies are now being subpoenaed to supply evidence for one or both sides. Eventually, everybody finds out what you knew and what you didn't tell. And the best position you could be in is to say, I knew something was up, I wasn't sure what it was, but I decided to stay completely out of it until it figured itself out.
But if the spouse that eventually finds out that their partner's cheating on them knows that, and they knew that you knew something, and they were angry if you're not saying anything, what could you say to defend yourself against that?
At that point, I say what I told the first spouse and what I'm telling you now. I have no idea how you run your intimate relationships. As a relationship coach, I can tell you that more couples are practicing some form of non-monogamy in secret than they are openly. And it's not my place to judge anybody. It's not my place to interfere. It's not my place to go to somebody else and tell them how to live their lives. We assume that we're talking about adults here. And all adults have every right to live life the way they want. And I can tell you that going into any situation saying, hey, you shouldn't do that or you should be doing this, just the way I wouldn't want anybody telling me how to run my relationships, I don't want somebody who has no consequence involved to be telling me what to do. I wouldn't do it to others.
All right, now if we take it out of the relationship sphere for a second and we take it more into the, let's say, the legal sphere, if you know that somebody you know is committing some kind of a crime, is it your obligation to report them to the authorities?
First question, do you have evidence of this?
Evidence is...
You saw them drinking alcohol underage.
You saw them drinking alcohol underage. You saw him molesting a child. You saw him doing this. You saw him doing that. You saw him pickpocket. You saw him shoplift.
Okay, well, there's some barriers here to look at, so let's look at some of them, okay? First and foremost, if you don't have any evidence and you start going around accusing people of things that you don't have proof that they did or they didn't do, you yourself could be held liable for any damages that person suffers.
I believe that's called slander, correct?
Exactly.
But what if they tell you that they've done something, but you don't quite believe them, or you're not quite sure if they're really telling the truth?
In most cases, if they're doing something that heinous, they wouldn't be telling you.
But let's say if they do. Let's say if they're trying to brag about it.
Look, Itai's in high school, so a lot of kids in high school, they'll smoke pot or they'll do something, and then they'll go and brag to their friends about it. They won't necessarily tell everyone else, but they'll tell their friends that they did something horribly illegal. They went to drink, they went to smoke pot, they snuck into a bar, they did, there's a million things that high school kids do.
I can tell you when I was in high school, people did that all the time. They would say to me, to other people, oh, I did such and such a thing, and they're all like laughing and stuff about it. And some of those people, the school found out, they all ended up getting expelled.
So if we look at Itai's situation of being in high school, these situations don't necessarily apply to people outside of high school, but in high school they're very real.
Okay, let's look at that situation. First and foremost, the first thing you say is, do you have proof of this? I mean, hey, it's a great story, but do you have proof? If the person decides to present evidence to you, now you've got a moral dilemma, because until you have that evidence, it's all hearsay.
But if he brags, or if he or she brags about doing something, would that be considered as proof?
No, Because
But wouldn't it matter how? Wouldn't there be a degree of how dangerous it was, the thing that they did? For instance, if somebody says, "I went out and I jaywalked yesterday," all right, so jaywalking, is a certain level of dangerous. But if they said, "I went out and had unprotected sex," or "I went out and I did drugs and I did cocaine the other day," I mean, it's suddenly a totally different level of danger.
You also have to factor in that the person who's doing the telling also has to factor in their safety involved. Because it's great to take the moral high ground and say, well, I did the right thing and I went and I told on that person. In a high school environment, the person who's doing the telling may no longer be safe in that environment for doing, quote-unquote, the right thing.
That's true. That's true.
You have to factor that in as well. So the 14-year-old who says, I know that those people had unprotected sex and, they're putting their lives at risk. Well, the person who's now doing the tattletaling or the telling or the snitching or, doing the right thing, however way you want to frame that person's now at risk for something potentially bad to happen to him.
But I don't think that's quite correct. Because if someone is doing something wrong, if someone is doing something wrong and if someone is doing something wrong and it's wrong and it affects many other people, it would, even if the person who tells gets maybe a little more uncomfortable in their own environment, it would make a lot more people more safe because that person is no longer doing that action or crime.
Let's say you're right. Are you absolutely sure that all those people that you're making more safe are going to appreciate you for it?
You know what? The best mitzvah is the ones that aren't bragged about. So,
but here's another question: what happens if someone imparts this information upon you and then gives you a threat, i.e., I did something, insert thing here, and if you tell anyone about this, I will cause some sort of harm to you or something?
Well, okay, that if there's a threat, then I call 911.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to do. If there's a threat, you may want to take immediate action and possibly have that person removed.
But do you feel morally obligated to report this stuff when people tell you these things? Because the second you report them, no one's ever going to tell you anything else again, right?
That's right. You won't be trusted.
Yeah, so suddenly you become the untrusted one, and suddenly become the outcast,
or the rat, the narc, whatever.
So the question is, in a high school environment, let's go back to your high school environment. Do you feel morally obligated when someone tells you something to go and to tell an authority, especially if it's something really bad? Itai.
Well, no, again, I believe that if we said that if someone just bragged about it, that's not really considered proof.
Right.
Okay. So if it's not really considered proof, then you can't just go on that. So again, what Frank said is true. If there is proof, then you probably should consider about your own safety, but you should also probably consider about the people who are affected if you don't say anything.
But Frank, don't you have don't we have the scale of probability too? So knowing the character of the person who's telling you what they did, the scale of probability that they actually did what they said they did would be fairly high. Therefore, you could assume that what they told you is true?
Unless I see any evidence of the fact, I just assume that they're talking. And if they're just going to talk, hey, let them talk. The minute they start talking about something, though, that could be a potential danger to other people, for example.
Or what about a danger to themselves, Frank? What if they're telling you that they're doing cocaine? And you know that cocaine is going to kill them because cocaine kills people.
Something I learned in the coaching business, you can't force help on someone who's not interested in being helped.
But how do they know if they're interested in being helped if nobody knows that they need help? People have to know they need help too.
I say especially
if they're under 18.
If someone is bragging about something, or someone says, or if you don't quite know proof, but they're bragging about it, you should just tell them what's wrong with it. You should tell them what's going on. You should tell them.
Tell who?
The person who has done these vicious things. You should tell them what is wrong with what the actions that they're proposing that they have done, and you should just tell them and let them make the decision after that. But again, if they're just saying it, you have no real proof. So just better to tell them and stay safe than be sorry that you didn't say anything.
Mark, what do you think?
I would try to play it safe also, but if I, for example, knew someone who it wasn't drugs. Let's say someone told me that, they had a gun, and I thought maybe they were, playing around. But a thing like that, that's totally different. If someone told me they had a gun and they were going to do something unmentionable, then I would probably, and you'll pardon the expression, sing like a canary. Because when someone says something like that, you might not have proof, but they could be kidding around.
Yeah, at a certain level, it becomes necessary to say something.
Yes, like in that situation, if someone tells you they have a gun and they're going to do something in a school, then it's time to, literally sing like a canary.
But minor things that only affect the person in question.
514-738-4100, extension 200 if you want to get in on the conversation. All right, we're going to have to take a little break. Frank, you stick around?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll take a little break, guys, and we'll regroup right after this. I'm Howie Silbiger. This is Sundays with Howie on 1650 AM, CJRS Radio, Shalom, Montreal. Heard around the world on a True Talk Radio network. On the phone with us is Frank B. Kermit. He's a relationship expert.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. Ladies, do you want the man in your life to understand you on your level? Do you want your man to be able to listen to and address all of your emotional needs? Show him how much you really want your relationship to be the best it can be. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test makes the perfect gift. The book, written by a man, for men, is endorsed by every woman that reads it. This book is a guide for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
In studio with me, Itai, Mark David. On the phone, Frank B. Kermit, relationship expert. Hi, Frank.
Hey.
And we're talking about, is it morally right? Do you have a moral responsibility to turn people in when you see them doing immoral or illegal stuff? 514-738-4100, extension 200. Feel free to sound off. Itai.
Always going back
to Itai, because you're in high school, and this really applies greatly in high school.
Not as much as you think.
Well, a lot of stuff happens in high school. And you're all underage.
Education.
And you're all underage, and underage kids tend to try to do stuff that they have to wait to be older to do. I mean, that's just common knowledge.
Yes, but many people do wait. I wait. I'm waiting for the right to vote.
All right.
And
well, you really can't steal the right to vote.
Many people have tried, and they have somewhat succeeded.
Really?
Yeah, people not rig election, but they
high school students? I can't imagine that a 13-year-old kid in grade 7 or 8 could walk into a polling station and vote.
No.
But I could imagine. But I could imagine
electronic voting.
But I could imagine them breaking into their parents' liquor cabinet and drinking vodka.
Well, I could also imagine kids going on the computer, illegally hacking into an electronic voting booth and doing whatever they want.
That's true too. Frank.
Yes.
So you're saying that it's not your moral responsibility. Mind your own business. That's basically what you're saying.
Provided you're not in any position of authority. Again, when you're talking about minors, there's an additional branch of law, because minors don't always have the right to consent or the right to make their own decisions.
In Quebec, they do very early. So in
what are you talking about?
In Quebec,
well, the age of consent in Quebec for sex is 14.
No. What I'm trying to say is, at 14, you can have a private conversation with your doctor.
Yes.
So again,
now, that's only because the age of consent for sex is 14, and that's why you can have a private conversation with your doctor, so that you don't have to reveal the fact that you had sex or that you're pregnant to your parents. So they changed that's why the law was made that way. It was all because the age of consent for sex is 14.
Yes.
Now, but you can't vote. You can't drink.
I know, but Frank, the question is really, if you know this person might harm someone else.
Oh, absolutely. If we're talking about something where, as Mark gave the example, about having the gun, and you're talking about someone who's a potentially for violence, then yes, you would go around and say, hey, everybody, listen up. Somebody here has a weapon here and might cause irreparable harm. Could go out and kill someone.
But what is the criteria in which you make the point where it's harming someone, it's harming other people enough that you have to say it primarily on the basis of them saying something?
When someone is doing damage to themselves, that's where it's a gray area, because you can't really step into a situation where if a person is not interested in getting help, then you stepping in isn't going to do anything worthwhile.
But aren't we responsible for our fellow man? No. So if you know that somebody's destroying themselves, aren't you responsible for trying to save them, for trying to help them?
Yeah, you should tell them what's wrong with what they're doing.
But why is it any of your business?
Because let's say you're friends with this person. Let's say you're not friends with. Let's say you're friends, or let's say you're a relative. Especially if you're a relative or friend, it's definitely your business because they're your friend.
But that means that you are also giving every friend and relative you have the opportunity to step into your life and tell you to do and not do things.
I would love it if I was doing something wrong. If heaven forbid I was, let's say, smoking tobacco. If heaven forbid I would love an intervention. Now, but probably then no. But I would love an intervention.
One second, you bring up a good point there, Itai. What about interventions? Suddenly people are butting into other people's business and saying, all right, we're concerned friends, and we're going to intervene.
And what happens when that person who's being intervened on isn't even interested in getting help?
No, so you're saying no interventions?
What I'm saying is you can't force help on someone who's not interested in it.
But does it mean as a friend you can't try to help them? I mean, I think that's what you should always do. I think you should always have that knowing and recollection that you tried to help the person.
Let me give you one really clear example here that's going to illustrate my point. Let's say your friend wants to take a program of study in something that you think is completely wrong for him. Now, you could easily say, well, wait a minute, he's not hurting anybody, so what's the big deal? He can go ahead and do that. If you as his friend completely disagree with the road that he's taking, should you as his friend do everything you can to stop him from making that decision?
No, but I'm talking more about hurting himself.
But this is a matter of opinion.
Yes, it is a matter of opinion, but let's say it's something very clear and obvious. They are smoking. We all know that can kill people. So if they're smoking, don't I, as a friend of this person, have an obligation as a friend? If I was smoking, let's say, I would love it. I would feel very much loved if someone came to me and said something. Although I wouldn't feel loved at that moment, I would feel very much loved. I would want people to do that for me. I don't want people just to say, go ahead. If something is happening, I would like people to say something at least.
All right. Howie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you and I have been friends for years, correct?
Correct.
Now, in your own description, I'm probably one of the more odd friends that you have in your circle.
Yeah, I guess you would qualify as fairly odd.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and I have very different lifestyles.
Definitely.
We have different standards in terms of what we expect in terms of behavior, different types of relationships with the other people we engage with. Now, you and I are different in that respect. What is it that makes us friends, Howie?
The fact that, I don't know, the fact that we're friends, that's what it comes down to.
The fact that we can respect each other's decisions even though they're different.
Right.
Yes, but we could still give each other's opinion. I mean, if I see my friend doing something, even if it's not even illegal, if I see my friend doing something and I don't think it's right for him, I could give him my opinion. I don't force him, but I at least give him my opinion. I think
But you're judging him.
No, I'm not judging him.
If you're going to go and tell your friend, hey, I think what you're doing is wrong.
No, I'm not going to say it like that.
Well, what are you going to say?
I'm going to say, I just want you to understand what you're doing. I just want you to understand that if you, let's say, go into this program and la, 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 it might not be the best thing for you. But again, it's all up to you. And I just want him to tell him that if you ever need anyone to talk to about this, I'm here. And that I'm just telling you that, this could be definitely dangerous for you. I think is not one of the major things about relationship communication, making sure that people understand that you're still there for them and telling them that, you know what, I don't really agree with this, and I'm just telling you that you could cause harm. I think they should always be. I think your friend should always be aware that you're trying to help them, and I would feel very much loved if my friend did that for me.
All right, guys, we're all out of time. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Itai. Thank you, Mark, for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
It's a very good discussion.
I'm Howie Silbiger. This is Sundays with Howie. We'll be back next Sunday night at 6 p.m. live between 6 and 8 p.m. right here on 1650 a.m. CJRS Radio, Shalom, Montreal. Heard around the world on the True Talk Radio Network. We'll see you next week.